This evening session, and thank again for coming for the third day of this training. Before we start this evening session, I think we need to have a little bit recap of what we have discussed yesterday. Yeah, okay. Yesterday we talked about these teaching strategies and of course techniques. Uh, Teaching is simply, as we have said, the how of doing things. It's how we can empower our students in terms of acquisition of knowledge, skill, and attitude. So if that is the case, we have different approaches of doing it. Of course, we have different approaches of doing it. So since teaching is a process of transferring knowledge, facilitating change, teachers employ different types of teaching styles. As you might remember our yesterday's discussion. So we can broadly categorize these styles into two: traditional versus modern teaching style. Traditional versus modern one. Sometimes, as I've tried to indicate, you don't have to give 0 to the traditional one. There are times that we can employ traditional one at times, right? Depending on the context. And there are times that you can apply the modern teaching style, depending on context. Look, one of the participants the other day asked me about impact of class size on smoothly facilitating change in our students. So in that case, look, consider the situation, still you can use the traditional one. I don't mean that traditional one is still 0-1, but consider the context you are in. And the preferable one is, of course, is a modern style. So let me emphasize on the modern style of teaching. Teachers normally are assumed as facilitators, they're guides and collaborators of learning, meaning the assumption is every person has got some source of knowledge, as constructivists normally claim. So teachers normally facilitate what the students think inside their mind. So teachers are facilitators. They don't give anything. In other words, but they teach their students how to fish a fish. In traditional one, the teacher provides the fish. But in the modern one, the teachers teach their students how to fish a fish. So this is what facilitator is all about. It's empowering one. So it's making the student to be, independent from adults or any other supporters, because they are using the students to use his or her mind to discover, to innovate, to create something new, to be illuminated. Again, that's what modern style talks about. And in modern style of teaching, it is learner-centered. When you say centered, it means students do most of the activities. Look, I'm a teacher myself, and when you tell that you give main exercise to your students may get bored. You, as if you are passive, as if you are not prepared to deliver the certain knowledge to your students. But the modern teaching style is that learners do most of the activities. Your role is guidance, showing directions. Like, what if you do this way? What if you don't do this? What would happen? So at the end of the day, the students themselves reach to the conclusion. So it is learner centered, means most activities are done by student. This does not mean the teacher is passive. Look, when you give class discussions, some teachers sit in front of students while students are discussing. No, no, no. Students are active. You should be active at the same time. You should know, you should control how students are doing their discussions, if they are on track or not, if every student is participating or not. So you are active and students are active at the same time. But you don't do most of the work. Rather, you give them and you direct them. You facilitate. Your role as a controller become somewhat passive as compared to the traditional one. And it really innovates creativity, critical thinking, which really helps students to use for their daily life. And interactive methodology are used. And the very nature of this modern teaching style is applying knowledge to the real world context. If you empower the students through directing, facilitating, then they will solve any problems that comes to their life in their neighborhood. So, I mean, this is what's the modern teaching style. And still, I repeat, there are times that, well, you may use a traditional one, depending context. For example, lecture. Like when there are many students in a classroom, yeah, lecture may be preferred, though it's not, I mean, preferable one. I mean, things can be right or wrong based on context. We can't simply judge like this is right, this is wrong. The teacher applies something and considering, the context, you can judge if that is right or wrong. Like we can't do this as we are doing in this online platform. And of course, teaching is related to students' activity, and we have different students who have got different preference to learning, which you call it approach to learning. We have three types: three deep approach, surface approach, and strategic. So look, as a teacher, you have to know who your students are and their learning style at the same time, their preferences, strengths, and points that your student need to be improved. So, I mean, because that's our responsibility as a teacher. As I've told you, this teaching is a process of facilitating change. So if we don't fulfill this one, meaning if your students are not changed, then at the end of the day, we can't escape the blame because we have got the major stake. The major stake in student success or failure. The major, not the only one, but the major. So as that responsible person who sharpens citizens, you should know your students, everything, including their learning approach. And again, you have to guide them. For example, in deep approach, I think that's the most preferable one because this sort of students normally prefer to solve their daily problems, daily encounters. Deep approach students are not concerned with A, B, C grades. Of course, they are concerned, but they feel happy when they apply the knowledge to their context. Surface approach, they avoid failure. Whatever strategies they use, the only means is to get a pass mark. Not the highest mark, by the way, or not the average mark, but just a pass mark, 51. So, they get bothered while they're doing things because they are very passive learner. They use simple repetition of information without relating to an information they learn without relating it to the real life context. and the reality on their context. So, I mean, that's why sometimes some students get bored as a student. You know, this failure avoidance possesses their mind. So day in, day out, they think about pass or fail. Look, they don't do their educational activities in a good way, and again, they are not happy at the same time. It's a loss-loss game, just a loss-loss game. I mean, that's a very wrong approach. So check your students. Anyways, here in Ethiopia, for example, we have got an office called Guidance and Counseling Office that normally adjusts this kind of issues. Like, okay, supporting students to attend school in a relaxed manner. And there is, anyways, so this is one of the two. A strategic one, as we have said the other day, is grade is the most essential thing. They do whatever technique it takes to get a good grade, whatever technique, be it deep, be it surface. But grade is important. Grade is important. They feel happy when they score good grades, even with a very shallow understanding of concepts. If teachers add some points to their mark, still they feel happy. But if you compare these students to the deep style approach learning students, well, deep approach don't like that one. I mean, they don't feel happy, they don't feel sad. It's up to the teacher if the teacher asks marks or not. Because their very trust is understanding. So think of your students and try to guide them as a teacher, as a responsible teacher. So, of course, our activity can influence their learning approach, as I have told you, for example, in terms of the assessment. If your questions mostly are the ones that need rote memorization, then that's the case. So that is what it is. Classroom management, of course, teachers need to be very good classroom managers. When you say classroom managers, they need to create an optimum situation, context, environment, so that every student feels welcomed in a classroom. The physical environment, the psychological environment, the social environments of the classroom should be well fostered for the teaching learning process. That's it. Think of it again. You are not one who simply go to classroom and teach. No, check the context. Check the psychological status of the classroom environment. Is there, like hatred among students or between teacher and students, or a positive energy in the classroom? Check that one out. And try to make up some errors in the classroom, both physical and in the other one. Like if it's a very hot environment, if uh, windows are closed, well, you can open the window at least. This is what you can make as a teacher. Or if there are ventilators, still you can put on these ventilators. And look, it includes everything: the physical, psychological, and social environment. The classroom should be well fostered so that students can have a very good learning. And classroom management, we can classify that into preventive and, of course, curative. Preventive before the problem approach, and curative after it happens. So we have seen these techniques. Assessment is vital, of course. assessment is vital in the process. And as you have said, assessment is process of collecting information about students' performance using variety of techniques, not only one. Look, traditional teachers normally focus only on examination, final exam, mid-exam, and things like that. That's old-fashioned. You can't know your students. That's wrong. And let you consider other forms of assessment at the same time. That's what assessment is. Evaluation is judgment, as you have said, when you really decide. The point is you can't decide without having information, ample information, so that people, don't complain. Well, it has advantage for teachers and students. We have this type of assessment. So this evening, we are talking about preparing for a teaching career. And then what? It will answer then what question. We talked about a teaching career, a teaching process, a teaching strategy, the meaning and different factors affecting teaching learning process. So now the final day, which I hope will have so many questions and answer session, is okay. I think I'm audible, right? Am I audible? Okay.
Okay, John.
So, yes.
Do everything's right?
Okay. Am I audible now?
Yeah, I'm recording. Don't worry. Everything's okay.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Right. So this evening, we'll be talking about preparing for a teaching career. So how can we be a professional teacher? Now, look, as we have tried to say the other day, passion is important to be a very good teacher. This is a profession that needs more passion than others, I would say. Because look, you are given an hour for some sections, which you are a manager, which you can do whatever you want to do in a classroom. And if you don't have that much passion to the profession, well, it's less likely that your students benefit a lot from your process, instruction. And you may not be again satisfied at the same time. So please be passionate to it. Be passionate to it. Of course, other than being passionate, you should know what knowledge and skill it demands. What knowledge does teaching demands? What about the skills? I'm warning this to you. Of course, I know frustrating you actually. Because look, when you join the profession and when you have a mentality perfection, like every student should score 100 out of 100, like every student should be disciplined, every student should do this and that, well, then that might create frustration. Consider the differences among students that you talked the other day. So please have passion, interest to teach, then know what it demands, the knowledge and skill. Of course, the knowledge are the ones that we have already talked, and the skill are the ones that we have talked already. And when you think about this one, think of the different categories or the options you have. Just identify. Are you going to be a primary school teacher, secondary school teacher, adult education and literacy teacher, or even a university teacher? Think of it. So after you identify this one, then pick. Like primary school, for example, teachers normally engage with these young children with basic literacy skills, alphabets, numbers, and the like. And it again is a time and a place where students, develop kind of interest and passion to learning. And again, at this level, students should not be frustrated. Levels of education. So there are certain demands for primary school professional. You can consult your area's education office laws and policies about this one. Or still you can be a secondary school teacher. Like here in my country, secondary school is from grade 9 to 12. So they are dominantly specializing in certain disciplines like mathematics, physics, biology, and others. And mostly these grade level teachers are expected to have a minimum of first degree. And in some countries, maybe second degree. But I would say first degree would suffice. And again, these teachers are preparing the students for vocational paths or higher education, university education. After high school, there are two paths. Some move to technical and vocational schools, others to university. This happens in every country of the world, developed and developing. Here in my country, we have vocational schools and again, universities. So it's how you prepare these students. And as I have tried to say earlier, you have to know the interest of your students, the potentials, the abilities, the skills they have, and their gaps. And you can recommend. You can consult with parents as to which further education levels that students might join, like higher education or vocational school. But as I've told you, you need to have a minimum of a first degree for secondary school in most instances. Other times, there are this time concepts of adult education and literacy teachers. Many NGOs in different countries operate on this teaching field. They are normally focused on adults. Look, the primary ones are for children, young children, kids. Secondary are just for adolescents, but this one is for adults, as you can imagine. Just our fathers, mothers, and fathers who have literacy skills and numeracy skills. They don't know letters, they don't know numbers. Just like you do for the children, we're doing this one. Well, let you consider yourself. Which levels, which options are your preference and interest? And of course, passion and interest alone does not guide you. You need to have the basics of the knowledge delivered at the different levels of education. Look, again, you need to have these connections with different professional organizations. There are different websites if you Google, right? Teaching professional organizations. They deliver lessons, they provide online training, timely especially. And networking really benefits. And again, these online resources are there. There are different research outlets about teaching learning process. Again, teachers can empower themselves by visiting these online resources. Knowing the policy is very important. Look, before deciding the level of education you'll be interested in, you need to understand your country's education policy. Here in Ethiopia, you can't be a teacher by simply having a certain degree level. You may have physics degree with 4 points for GPA. But to be a good teacher, you need to take education courses. We call it PGDT. PGDT. Postgraduate Diploma in Teaching. Because attending biology, physics is one thing, and teaching students is another one. It's a profession, it's a science that needs training. So just consider your country's education policy, regulations. Number two, what is your country's policy in terms of future trends in education? Is it maximizing, say, primary education, secondary education, university education? So if you consider these policies, you have a high probability of just being employed. So think of the future trends of, your country policies that really benefits. And another important point is continuous professional development that can be conducted through different strategies, including, for example, workshop, different courses, certification, and the like. This is how we can be, getting part. As I've tried to tell you the other day, I mean, teaching is a lifelong learning process. You learn from everything, from a students. Yeah. There is no perfect learning. So we call it continuous professional development, especially for those who are in the teaching profession. And if you don't have a license in that case, so you can pursue these trainings, continuous professional development. Or again, you can be acquainted with a new policy and strategy interventions of a country. Continuous professional development. And a teaching license, I think that's international. Having a teaching license is international. Teaching certificates, as I've told you, is postgraduate diploma in teaching. A physics plus certificates. Chemistry plus certificate. This works in most part of the world, by the way. And consider your case. And in this regard, Hanun has developed a special training called postgraduate diploma in psychology of education and teaching for those who have good knowledge in biology, physics, but want to be a teacher, and they want to be licensed, or they want to be, employed in different international organizations in your locality. So what does this program contain? For example, there are teaching methods, the ones I've pinpointed earlier, with further demonstrations and examples, plus reflective practice. We call it teachers as reflective practitioners. It has, anyway, some contents in it. So assessment and evaluation of learning, the one I try to jot it down. Developmental psychology says, how do people develop? How do students develop from one stage to another? So how can you adjust teaching in line with the developmental level? Physical, cognitive, and social development. So there's a course which is called developmental psychology. And application of learning theories and curriculum. We have different theories of learning, by the way, which I didn't touch again in this training. Theories of learning. Theory normally tells you why something happens. And because of that, some change up. So we have theories of learning and curriculum development. Well, teachers need to examine their curriculum, draft a curriculum, improve their curriculum, because students learn what is drafted in a curriculum. We have implicit, explicit curriculum. And so this is some of the courses. Practicum, you apply this in teaching context. And we have actual research and writing skills, important course. By the way, writing, but as a professional one, you need to write. Most culture in the same part of the African continent, here in Ethiopia and eastern part of Ethiopia and East Africa as a whole, we have this oral, history. We transfer knowledge and skills through talking, right? That's an excellent means of transferring knowledge, by the way. That's very interesting. When you tell tales to your kids, this is how you transfer knowledge to your kids. But I think it has to be written at the same time. So now we are in a modern world where teaching should be, writing should be a culture. So there's actually such a writing skills. How do you write something? How do you write a report? and of course for research purposes. Inclusive education for students with diversity. Okay, one of the participants the other day asked me about diversity is simply differences. Look, you have one classroom and you should consider that classroom just as your child. Be that classroom of students who are very, misbehaving, students who maybe have less ability and skill of doing things, or students who are with different colors, different gender groups or whatever. You are responsible. Look, a governor of a district cannot devoid the right of a person because that person is blind, for example. No. You should foster, you should provide what that blind student needs, that deaf student needs, students from remote areas need. So inclusion, so how do you include? We have a course with this one, a very interesting course. Educational technology, of course. Again, so Somali communities, I really appreciate that one. They're highly engaged in technology. So, but how do you really apply that for the teaching learning process? Rather than only for games and TikToks and other issues. How can we employ technology for the teaching learning process? In this case, our students are entertaining at the same time learning. So educational technology is very important. We have mental health school counseling. Yeah, we have students with different challenge problems. And this one should not be, ignored. A school should have some kind of support system. A student should not be ignored because of his or her mental status or any other deficiencies. It is the school's responsibility to support the students. So how can this be done? There is a course with this one. And of course, finally, there is a practicum course for counseling. Practicum. You train how to counsel. You train how to support a student in a classroom. This is, I would say, the postgraduate diploma in psychology of education and teaching offered by Hanun. And again, registration is already in process, by the way. You can get to the website of the Facebook and other medias of Hanun University, and you can get procedures registered if you have interest to be a teacher, and if you want to be certified in teaching profession, because the future of a country shaped through education, and teachers play a vital role. But the quality of teachers really contribute a lot to progress of a nation. Everything being considered, like infrastructure, blackboard, school environment, administration, or whatever. If the quality of teachers is enhanced, the quality of education will be enhanced. This is what different researchers are, advocating. So this being the case, now let us be to the question and answer session, because this is the last session. I think you can have several questions about the profession as a whole, or the tracing procedures, the training procedure, and anything. So now the plat is open. You can raise any issue from day 1 to 3 about teaching profession and its requirements. The floor is yours. Thank you very much for your attention. I really appreciate that one.